Alina had imagined many things about her new life before she stepped onto the plane. She pictured bright streets, tall buildings shining like in the magazines, and friendly faces waiting to welcome her. Instead, when she arrived at the airport after a long flight, she found herself in a quiet corner where the crowd moved fast, each person focused on their own business. She held her small suitcase tightly, trying not to look lost. Everything around her felt larger, louder, and more confusing than she expected. She repeated David's name in her mind, hoping she would recognize him when she saw him. When he finally waved at her from across the arrival hall, she felt a small breath of relief. David was exactly as he looked in the picture stall, gentle-faced. A little shy in the way he stood with his hands in his pockets. His smile was careful, but sincere. He held out his hand as she approached. "Alina?" he said softly. She nodded, and he helped her with her suitcase. The moment felt strange, like greeting a distant relative she had never met before. They were officially connected by paper and promises, yet they were two strangers standing under bright airport lights. He seemed nervous too, clearing his throat often and searching for the right words. She appreciated that he did not try to force conversation. Instead, he let her rest as they walked to his car. The drive was long. The city lights faded slowly behind them until the roads grew quiet and wide. Fields stretched on both sides. Alina looked out the window, trying to understand this new world. It was peaceful, but also lonely. She wondered if she had made the right choice coming here. Back home, her life had been small, but familiar. Here, everything was new, and every new thing held both promise and risk. David tried to explain the area to her as he drove. He spoke about the seasons, how winters were cold but beautiful, and how summers filled the fields with green. His voice was calm and warm, like someone describing a place they loved. Alina liked that about him. He spoke with care, as if he hoped she would like his homeland as much as he did. Still, a small part of her felt uncertain. She had only known him through letters and short video calls. Now she was sitting in his car, miles away from anyone she knew. When they reached the house, Alina stared at it through the dim evening light. It was simple, pale-colored, with a small porch and a large garden that looked like it once held many flowers. It did not look frightening, just quiet, maybe too quiet. She stepped out, stretching her legs, and took a slow breath. The air was fresher than in the city. She could hear crickets somewhere in the grass. "You must be tired," David said as he unlocked the door. "Take your time. If you need anything, just ask." Inside, the house was clean and neatly arranged. The furniture was old but cared for, and a soft smell of cedar filled the air. Alina traced her fingers along a wooden table, noticing tiny marks that suggested it had been used for many years. She wondered how many memories lived in this house. Happy ones, sad ones, lonely ones. David showed her the guest room where she would stay for now. She appreciated that he did not assume she was ready to share a room with him. It showed respect. The room had a small bed, fresh sheets, and a window that faced the garden. She placed her suitcase down and whispered a small thank you in her own language, while she unpacked. She found herself listening to the sounds of the house. Every creak, every soft hum from the heater made her stop and think. She was someone who paid attention to details, especially in unfamiliar places. She noticed that the hallway had many picture frames, but several of them were empty. Others held faded photos of a smiling woman with gentle eyes. Alina felt unsure how to react. She had heard that David was a widower, but seeing traces of the woman he once loved made her heart a little heavy, though not jealous. She simply felt the weight of a history she did not yet understand. Later, David prepared a simple dinner. They ate at the small kitchen table, facing each other. He asked her about her journey, her hometown, her favorite foods, and whether the house felt comfortable enough. She answered politely, sometimes pausing to find the right English words. He waited patiently each time, never rushing her. She liked that about him too, yet beneath the polite conversation, Alina sensed something in the air, a kind of silence that felt too deep. It was not threatening, just unusual. It was as if the house was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. She noticed how David sometimes looked around as though checking if everything was in its place. He hid it well, but she could see a hint of worry on his face. The kind that comes from living with old memories or heavy thoughts. After dinner, he gave her a small tour of the house. The living room had a fireplace, though he said it had not been used in a long time. The kitchen was bright with soft yellow walls, but one detail stood out to her. At the end of the hallway, there was a door that remained firmly closed, and David did not mention it. His eyes briefly flicked toward it before he guided her to another room. She chose not to ask, not on the first night. Before she went to bed, Alina stepped outside onto the porch. The night sky was clear, and she could see countless stars. She wrapped her arms around herself, not from cold, but from the strange feeling of standing in a life she had only imagined. She had dreamed of a fresh start, a chance to help her family, and maybe build something meaningful for herself. Now she wondered what kind of story she had stepped into. David remained inside, cleaning the dishes. She could see him through the window, quiet, careful, and alone in his own home. She felt sympathy for him. Losing someone changes a person, even if she did not yet know the full story. She hoped she could bring kindness into this space. Even if everything felt uncertain, when she finally lay down in her room, as the sheets cool against her skin, she let herself relax for the first time that day. But her mind did not rest easily. She replayed everything: the long journey, the quiet house, the curious locked door, and the way David seemed both welcoming and guarded. She reminded herself that new beginnings always felt unsettling at first. She had taken a brave step, and bravery often came with unanswered questions. Outside, the wind moved softly through the trees. The sound was gentle, almost soothing, like nature, whispering that things would be all right. Alina closed her eyes and listened. She promised herself she would observe everything carefully, learn the rhythms of this household, and move slowly until she understood what her future here might hold. She did not want to judge too quickly. She knew that people were often more complicated than they appeared. She hoped that in time, she and David could build trust. One conversation at a time. As she drifted towards sleep, she thought about the letters they had exchanged. In those letters, David had seemed honest, humble, someone searching for connection. She remembered how he had once written that loneliness felt heavier after sunset. She knew that feeling too well. Maybe that shared understanding was where their story would begin. She hoped she would not disappoint him. No, she hoped he would be someone she could rely on. Her last thought before sleep was a quiet wish that this house, with all its silence and hidden pieces, would become a place of comfort rather than worry. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she promised herself she would face it with an open mind and steady heart. After all, every journey begins with uncertainty, and every new life is built one small moment at a time. Alina woke early the next morning, even before the sun had risen. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The soft, unfamiliar ceiling, the quiet hum of the heater, the faint scent of cedar, everything reminded her she was far away from her old life. She sat up slowly, stretching her arms, listening to the house around her. It felt peaceful, but there was still something she couldn't quite understand about it. It was the kind of quiet that made her listen more closely rather than relax. She stepped out of her room, and the hallway felt cool under her bare feet. The house was still dark except for a bit of light coming from the kitchen. She followed it and found David standing at the counter making coffee. He looked surprised, but pleased to see her. "You're up early," he said with a gentle smile. "I'm used to waking early," she replied. He nodded and poured her a cup. They sat at the table sipping in silence. It was a comfortable silence, not heavy like last night. She watched him move around the kitchen thoughtfully. He seemed careful in everything he did, as if he was afraid of making mistakes. Or perhaps he was simply trying to give her space. After breakfast, David suggested she explore the garden if she wished. He said he had some chores to take care of in the shed. Alina agreed. She wanted to step outside, breathe fresh air, and get to know her surroundings better. The garden was wide and open, with patches of wildflowers growing around the edges. The air smelled of dew and early morning sunlight. She walked slowly, touching the petals, feeling the earth beneath her shoes. She tried to imagine what the garden must have looked like when someone cared for it daily. She wondered whether it had once been filled with bright flowers planted carefully in rows. There was a softness to the place that suggested it had once held more life. As she looked around, she noticed a neighbor walking by on the road. The woman was middle-aged, holding a basket of groceries. Alina lifted a hand in greeting, wanting to start things on the right foot. The woman stopped, looked at her curiously, then gave a polite but hesitant smile before walking on. Alina wondered if the hesitation came from shyness or something else. This was a small community, and small communities tended to whisper. Later that day, David drove her to the nearby town so she could buy some things. She needed basic clothes, toiletries, and ingredients to cook dishes from her home country. The town was small and quiet, but friendly in its own way. Alina felt more at ease walking through the market stalls at one of the stores. While she was choosing fresh vegetables, she heard a friendly voice behind her. "You're new here," the woman said. She had kind eyes and spoke warmly. "Yes," Alina replied. "I arrived yesterday." "I thought so," the woman said with a smile. "I'm Marisol. I live a few streets away. We don't get many new people in this area." Alina returned the smile, grateful for the friendliness. They talked for a few minutes. And when Marisol learned that Alina had come from another country, she became even more welcoming. "You should come to the market cafe sometime," she said. "Many women from different places meet there. We share stories, advice, recipes, everything. You'll feel at home quickly." Lena liked the idea. A place with familiar accents and similar experiences sounded comforting. Marisol handed her a small card with the cafe's address and told her the usual meeting time. They parted with warm nods. When she returned to the car, David noticed her cheerful expression. "Did you meet someone?" he asked. "Yes, a woman named Marisol. She was very kind." "That's good," he said. But the way he said it made Alina pause. It sounded like he wanted to be happy for her, but something about his tone held a small worry. She didn't ask why. It didn't feel like the right moment. In the afternoon, Alina decided to explore the house a bit more. She wanted to familiarize herself with the place that was now her home. The rooms were simple, but full of character-soft rugs, wooden furniture, small decorations that hinted at a life lived here for many years. But there were also small signs she couldn't ignore. The empty picture frames in the hallway, the bookshelves missing books in certain places, drawers that looked like someone had gone through them and never finished putting things back properly. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but these details created questions in her mind. Eventually, she reached the closed door at the end of the hallway. She hesitated before touching the handle. She didn't plan to open it, just test if it was locked. When she lightly tried turning it, the handle didn't move. It was locked. A simple fact, but it made her wonder all over again. A locked room wasn't strange by itself, but the way David's eyes had glanced toward it last night made it feel like more than just a storage room. She stepped away. She didn't want to push limits so early. In the evening, she decided to try cooking something from her home country. She wanted to share a taste of her culture with David and maybe lighten the atmosphere. When he walked into the kitchen after working outside, he paused and smiled, surprised by the warm smell filling the room. "That smells amazing," said. "It is something from home," she said shyly. "I wanted to thank you." They ate together, and this time the conversation felt easier. Alina asked questions about the town, the people, the weather, and the festivals. David answered with more enthusiasm than before, even sharing small jokes about the unpredictable seasons and the community's love for local fairs. She laughed lightly, and he seemed almost relieved to see her comfortable. But she still noticed moments when he grew quiet suddenly, as if remembering something he didn't want to talk about. These silences came and went like passing clouds. The next day, Alina visited the cafe where Marisol had invited her. The moment she entered, she felt warmth not from the heaters, but from the friendly faces. Women from different countries sat around small tables, sipping tea and chatting. They welcomed her with smiles, encouraging her to join them. Alina felt a sense of belonging almost immediately. They shared stories of adjusting to a new country, learning the language, missing home, and building new lives from scratch. She listened closely, grateful for their openness, But as the conversations continued, Alina noticed a pattern in some of their stories, one that made her chest tighten. A few women mentioned knowing others who came to the town through arranged introductions, similar to hers. Some of these women, they said, had left suddenly or decided to go back home early. Alina frowned. Did they leave because they were unhappy here? She asked gently. The women exchanged looks before one of them replied, "We don't know for sure." They didn't say much before leaving. Another woman added softly, "Sometimes people don't talk about their problems. They just disappear quietly." Alina felt a strange uneasiness in her stomach. She didn't want to assume anything, but the way the women spoke suggested a mystery. She wondered if those women had left because they were homesick, or if there was something else. Something unspoken. She stayed quiet for the rest of the conversation, thinking. When she returned home, she found David sitting on the porch, looking thoughtful. When he saw her, he stood up quickly. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I met nice people." "I'm glad," he replied. But again, there was that small hint of tension in his shoulders. As the sun set, Alina walked through the hallway again. She paused in front of the locked door. She didn't touch it this time. She just stood there, wondering what lay behind it and why it was kept so carefully closed. She felt a quiet awareness growing inside her, nothing scary. Just the sense that there was more to this house, to David, and to this community than she first realized. She knew she had stepped into a story that was still unfolding. She would have to move with patience and heart to understand it fully. For now, she would watch, listen, and learn. Answers always revealed themselves in small moments if one paid close attention. And Alina was someone who always paid attention. Alina woke up on the third morning with a strange feeling, as if the air inside the house had changed overnight. Something felt heavier, not in a frightening way, but like the house was holding a secret that wanted to step forward. She sat up slowly, brushing her hair back, and let her eyes adjust to the soft morning light. She listened carefully. Everything was quiet, even quieter than usual. When she stepped into the hallway, she noticed David was not in the kitchen or living room. His boots were missing from the corner where he usually kept them. She peeked outside through the window and finally saw him near the garden shed, his shoulders slightly tense as he sorted things inside. She wondered what had kept him awake early in the morning. She made breakfast and waited, hoping he would join her, but he walked in looking distracted. His smile was polite, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something weighed on him. "You woke early again?" he said. Double quotes, yes. "I wanted to make breakfast," she replied softly. He nodded as he sat down and picked at his food. She noticed his hands trembled slightly when he lifted the cup. It wasn't fear. It looked like someone carrying a thought they didn't know how to express. For a moment, she considered asking what was wrong. But she held back. Their trust was still new, and she didn't want to push. Later that day, she went into town again to meet the women at the cafe. She enjoyed the warm energy of the group, but she couldn't shake the feeling from the morning. When Marisol asked her if she was all right, Alina smiled and said she was just adjusting to everything. That was partly true. The conversations at the cafe were cheerful at first. They spoke about cooking, jobs, and stories of trying to understand local customs. Alina enjoyed listening, learning, and laughing with them. But eventually the topic shifted again to the foreign women who had once lived in the area and then left quietly. This time, Alina paid closer attention. One woman said softly, "I knew a lady named Yana. She lived not far from here. One day she just left. No goodbyes, nothing." Another added, "Some people said she moved back to her country. Others said she went to another town." Alina leaned forward. Did anyone talk to her before she left? Did she say why she was going? They exchanged uncertain looks before one answered, "No." She didn't speak much. We all felt she was trying to hide something, or maybe she felt trapped by her situation. We don't know. Lena felt a small chill, not fear, but curiosity mixed with concern. She wondered if these women had been in circumstances like hers, trying to find a better life, unsure whom to trust. She wondered if they had gone through something difficult, but silent. When she left the cafe, she walked more slowly, thinking deeply. Steps behind her made her turn. It was Marisol catching up to her. "You're thinking about what you heard," Marisol said gently. Alina nodded. Marisol lowered her voice. "Some people here hide what they feel. They go through challenges without telling anyone. Maybe the women who left had personal troubles. Maybe they didn't feel safe. Or maybe they didn't feel understood." Lena looked at her carefully. "Do you think something is wrong here?" "No," Marisol said, shaking her head. "Not wrong, just complicated. This is a quiet town. Quiet places can hold stories that people rarely talk about." Lena appreciated her honesty. It made her feel less alone in her thoughts. That evening, when she returned home, she found David sitting on the couch with an open box beside him. Inside were piles of old papers. His expression was deep and thoughtful, almost like he was preparing himself for something. When he saw her, he tried to straighten up. "You're home," he said. "Yes," she replied gently. "Are you okay?" He hesitated before nodding. "I'm fine. Just sorting old things." She glanced at the papers but didn't move closer. "It looks important. They're just old documents," he said quietly. But something about the stiffness in his voice made her think. They were more than that. She placed her bag down and took a seat across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Silence filled the room like a soft blanket. Finally, she said, "You seem worried today." He froze for a moment, then sighed softly. "I didn't want to bring this up so soon, but there are things I haven't explained fully because I didn't want to overwhelm you." She waited patiently. He looked at his hands. "Before you came, I had to fill out many forms and speak with many people. Not because of you, but because of what happened before." "You mean your wife?" she asked gently. He nodded slowly. "She passed away, yes? But there were things that happened around that time, things that were difficult. People asked questions. They still ask sometimes." Her heart softened for him. "I'm sorry," took a shaky breath. "Thank you. I just didn't want you to feel uncomfortable. I want you to feel safe here." "I do," she said honestly. And she meant it even with her lingering questions. That night, while David went to bed early, Alina remained awake, looking at the quiet house around her. She felt a strange urge to walk down the hallway again. She stopped in front of the locked door. Her fingers hovered near the handle, but didn't touch it. She wasn't trying to invade privacy. She was trying to understand the unspoken things that kept appearing in small moments. Suddenly, a soft sound from inside the room made her freeze. It wasn't a frightening sound, just something like a box sliding or a soft shift. Maybe something settled on a shelf. Maybe the house simply made noises she hadn't learned yet. She stepped back and inhaled deeply. It wasn't fear that she felt. It was the realization that this house, this life, held layers she still needed to see. The next morning, rain fell continuously, tapping the windows gently. David stayed inside, working at the dining table with papers spread around him. Alina made tea and joined him. "What are these documents?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then slowly pushed one toward her. It was a letter from a legal office. Nothing alarming, just something about paperwork related to his late wife's estate. But the dates on the papers surprised Alina. Some were recent. She looked up at him. "You've been dealing with this until now?" He nodded. "It's complicated. Some people wanted answers and I tried to give them. But sometimes people hold on to suspicions even when there's no reason. Is that why you seemed worried?" she asked gently. "Yes," he admitted. "I didn't want my past to affect your comfort here." Lena reached across the table and placed her hand gently on top of his. "Your past doesn't scare me. Everyone has something they carry." He looked relieved, but also emotional. Later that afternoon, the power suddenly flickered and went out. The rainstorm had grown stronger. The room felt dim, and the quiet in the house deepened. David grabbed a flashlight. Alina followed him, not wanting to be alone. As he checked the fuse box, she stood nearby, watching him. When he opened the door to the basement, she felt a soft rush of cool air. For the first time, the door was unlocked. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly stepped forward as David fixed the switch. The light from the flashlight revealed shelves filled with folders, boxes, and carefully stacked items. Nothing strange, just things stored away. She walked in slowly. "This doesn't look like something scary," she said gently. David turned toward her with a tired smile. "It isn't. It's just where I keep things I'm not ready to sort yet," Alina nodded. For some reason, seeing the basement made her understand more deeply that he was just a person trying to keep certain memories in order, not someone hiding something frightening. She looked at him softly and said the words that came naturally, "We're alone. Time to do what must be done." But her voice carried warmth, not fear. Her meaning was simple. It was time to face whatever truths were needed to move forward together. Gently, honestly. David looked at her with gratitude, as if her words had lifted a weight from him. They stood there quietly, listening to the rain, both aware that something had shifted, not in a harmful way, but in a way that brought understanding. There were still things to uncover, still stories to learn, but they were beginning to face them with calm hearts, not fear. The storm lasted through most of the night, leaving the air cool and soft by morning. Alina woke to the gentle smell of damp earth and the sound of raindrops sliding off the rooftop. She took a moment to collect her thoughts. Everything from the day before felt like a turning point. She had seen the basement, spoken openly with David, and sensed a shift, something calm, something honest. She got out of bed and walked to the kitchen. David was already there, quietly preparing breakfast. He looked lighter today, as if a heavy cloud had drifted away from his shoulders. When he noticed her, he smiled in a warm, natural way that made her feel more at ease than ever before. "Good morning," said softly. "Good morning," she replied. Returning the smile, they ate together, and there was a new kind of peace between them. Not the uncomfortable silence of strangers, but the quiet comfort of two people, slowly learning to trust each other. Alina felt it clearly, as steady as the morning sunlight filling the room. After breakfast, he stepped outside to breathe fresh air. The grass sparkled with raindrops, and the sky had softened into a pale blue. She walked slowly through the garden, feeling relieved, yet aware that their journey was not completely finished. Building trust took time, especially in a house full of memories. As she looked at the flowers near the fence, she heard gentle footsteps behind her. David joined her, hands in his pockets, eyes on the ground, as if thinking deeply. "Alina," he said after a long moment, "there is something else I want to talk about." She turned to him, her expression open and patient. "I'm listening." He took a small breath. "I know you've heard things in town about women who left suddenly, and I know that must have made you wonder about this place. I want you to know you're safe here. Truly safe." She nodded softly. "I believe you." He looked relieved, but also emotional. "I don't want you to feel you must stay because of the documents or arrangements. If you ever feel unhappy or unsure, you're free to choose your path. I won't stop you." His words touched her deeply. She'd not expected such honesty. Instead of feeling trapped, she felt respected, perhaps more than ever before in her life. "Thank you," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "But I want to understand this place. I want to build a life honestly, step by step." He looked into her eyes, grateful. They spent the rest of the morning cleaning the house together. Alina organized the kitchen cabinets while David sorted old papers in the living room. They didn't talk much, but the shared activity made the space feel lighter. At one point, she found a small photo of the woman who had once lived there, David's late wife. The picture showed her smiling brightly in the garden. Alina paused, holding the photo gently. She didn't feel threatened by it. Instead, she felt respect. This house had held someone else's dreams before hers arrived. David noticed her looking at the photo. He walked over quietly. "She loved the garden," he said. "It looks like she brought life into this place," Alina replied. He nodded. She did. There was no tension in his voice, no, only gentle remembrance. Alina placed the photo back on the shelf, treating it with care. Days went by and Alina found herself settling into a rhythm. She attended the cafe gatherings more often. She made friends there, women who listened and shared without judgment. They welcomed her into their small community, happy to have another warm presence among them. One afternoon, as she sat with Marisol sipping tea, Alina shared a little about the questions she had carried. At first, The town felt full of secrets, Elena admitted with a small laugh. Marcel smiled knowingly. Quiet places often feel that way. But it doesn't mean they're dangerous. People simply don't speak loudly about the past. Lena nodded. She understood that now. Life wasn't always about running from shadows. Sometimes it was about learning the stories behind them. When she returned home later that day, she found David outside repairing the garden fence. She walked over to him and offered to help. Together, they fixed loose boards and cleared fallen branches from the storm. It felt simple, natural, like building something piece by piece. As they worked, David said, "You know, you're changing the atmosphere of this house." Oh. She looked at him curiously. "How?" He smiled. "It feels alive again." Her heart warmed. She wasn't trying to replace anyone or erase the past. She was simply being herself. But hearing that she brought light into a place that had felt heavy was meaningful. Over the following weeks, Elena and David grew closer not because they were forced together by circumstances, but because they chose to understand each other. Small gestures added up, shared meals, gentle conversations, the way they supported each other during quiet evenings. It wasn't romance or pressure. It was trust, slow, steady, sincere. One evening, the two of them sat on the porch watching the sky turn orange. The fields stretched far and peaceful. Elena felt a soft breeze against her skin. She looked at David and said quietly, "I'm glad I came here."
Ow.
He turned to her, surprised but happy. "I'm glad too," she continued. "At first everything felt unfamiliar, but now it feels like I'm learning where I fit." David rested his hands together and looked thoughtful. "If you ever want to explore new opportunities, studies, work, anything, I'll support you. Your dreams matter?" Elena felt a gentle wave of emotion. No one had ever told her that so simply. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means a lot." As the sky darkened, they sat together in comfortable silence. There was no rush. Life was unfolding slowly, like a story written with care. Months passed, and Elena found a part-time job at a small store in town. She grew more confident with her English. She made friends. She learned the quiet patterns of the community and became part of them. She even helped revive the garden, planting new flowers in the same places where the old ones once bloomed. David watched her grow with admiration. He never pushed, never rushed her. He simply supported her, step by step. And she noticed every act of kindness. Their relationship remained gentle and respectful. Two people sharing a home, learning to understand each other's strengths and uncertainties. One late afternoon, as they watered the garden side by side, Elena felt a soft clarity in her heart. She realized she wasn't living someone else's story anymore. She was building her own, right here. In this place that had once felt mysterious, she looked toward the house, the same house that had welcomed her with silence, questions, and unspoken memories. Now it felt warm, like a home shaped by patience, honesty, and mutual care. When she turned to David, she saw him looking at the garden with a peaceful expression. "This place looks different now," he said softly. "Yes," Elena replied, her voice calm and full of meaning. "Because we changed it." He nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. There was no dramatic ending, no sudden surprise. Instead, there was a simple, steady truth. Trust had grown between them. New beginnings had taken root. And the quiet house on the edge of town had become a place where two people healed in their own ways. Elena knew her journey wasn't finished. She still had dreams, still had growth ahead. But now she wasn't facing it alone or in fear. She had found a place where her voice mattered, where her presence made a difference, where her future could be shaped with gentle purpose. And as the evening breeze moved through the garden, she whispered to herself the same words she had said before, but now with new meaning. It was time to do what must be done, not out of fear, but out of hope. Her new life had truly begun.